What is it?
Look how cute those.
Oh yeah, don't touch those. They're roses. They got thorns on them. Just be careful around those.
You can't touch those.
You gotta get these roots spread out here so they can take all that loose.
Man, here we are. We're in Runnymede, New Jersey, Oakland Ave. And this is the house I grew up in when I was a kid. You know, from when I was 6 years old till about 13 or 14, this is where I lived. And man, a lot of memories growing up here. A lot of memories on fishing. One of my best memories, man, is getting ready for our summer vacation. And every year for a week, we would go up to the Pocono Mountains, and what a fun time. What an amazing time to fish for a week up there. And we'd have to get ready for this trip. And vividly remember me and my uncle and my grandfather packing the van to go to the Poconos. And we'd pack all our tackle, our clothes, we'd have boxes of food. We'd come down these steps, put it in the van, come back and forth. We'd spend like a week getting ready for this trip. But man, you know, the Poconos and those summer trips, that's where I learned the love for fishing. You know, not bass fishing in particular, but just they were the trips that got me into the sport and brought a lot of that love and passion back here. And then I'd want to go places, and I'd hop on my bike and I'd hit a lot of the streams and ponds around here, especially one place called Timber Creek. And we'd go and fish a spot called Bare Ass Beach, big sandy beach. And we'd catfish and bass fish on that beach. And that was a big step for me wanting to become a bass angler and not just a fisherman. Here we are, we're in the backyard of the house I grew up in. And you know, you look around, it looks like kind of a normal suburban house. But right here in this lawn that I'm walking on, some of the most fertile night crawler grounds you could find. Man, we'd come out here with a flashlight, with an old bucket, and after a rain, we'd come out here and man, we would find some night crawlers. And there was an art to it. I mean, you didn't just scoop them up. You had to get that flashlight and you'd sneak up on them. You'd see a night crawler, you'd get that flashlight in one hand and you'd have to be quick. And you'd pull that thing out of the hole and you'd have a night crawler, big giant night crawler. We would get buckets and buckets of them, man. We'd put worm bedding in them, put them in a little worm container, and we would trout fish with them, bass fish, crappie, catfish, anything that bit. But you know, that was a key stage of my life. Before I started using artificials, before I got into bass, it was all about catching fish. And these night crawlers, they were the best, Here we go, little relic that we've uncovered in the garage. And you're looking at it, and look, it's a Toyota. Man, what a commercial this is. This is my first truck I ever owned. And man, a lot of cool memories on this, you know, saving up for this, saving up all my money to buy this thing. And I bought it used, but I love this baby. I love this baby. And I had this before I ever owned a boat. But eventually when I got my John boat I'd get the John boat and I would just throw it in the back of the bed. And this thing was the first ride that I used to get me outside of my area that I grew up in. North Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania. I'd throw that John boat in the back of this thing and then I could start to travel. And man, brings back a lot of memories. Kind of 80s Back to the Future look to it, but Toyota, still here, still around. What an awesome truck. Look at that thing, man. Look at it. It's such a little truck. Look at it. Look at the lights on the top. It's got a roll bar on it. Oh my God. How bad's Don going to be that we broke the door down? Wow. Old school. Got my Bass sticker on the back.
So that's your high school.
This is my high school.
Home of the Mustangs.
Wow, I haven't been back here in a long time. Huh.
Look different?
A little bit. Looks like it just had a little bit of rehab done.
What kind of student were you?
Oh, man, I hate to admit it, but I was actually a poor student in high school. Very poor student in high school, man. It wasn't because I was dumb. It was because I had so much other stuff going on. You know, like I look back on it as a dad now and I'm horrified how I was. You know what I mean? But I always just did enough to be an average student, which was wrong. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until, you know, because most people, like now, like I want my kids to freaking know what college they're going to before they're even a senior, you know? But I graduated and I was absolutely certain that I didn't want anything to do with college. And that year off, that year that between 1990 and 1991, boy, that was such an important part of my life because, you know, it was like reality. It was a reality check, you know? And me and Brian, you have to ask him about this, got a job at a shipping and receiving place called IKE. Dude, the worst freaking job you could ever have, dude. You know,
was that like your first real job?
That was my first real. I had like before that when I was gone here, I worked at the IKE, which is a supermarket, and you know made money and stuff. But that was my first. Yeah, you know when I graduated and I wasn't going to college, my mom was like, "Dude, you're getting a job," you know. So we found this job together in the Courier Post, and it was like the pay was good. You know, it was like so many dollars an hour or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, this is great." And then I think we worked there about six or 7 months, and we were both like, dude, we got to get out of here. We got to figure. But it was a great moment for me, because then from there on, I'm like, I got to get my shit together. And I made the decision to go. At that point, I had to go to community college for a couple of years and get enough credits to transfer. 1957. Wow. Football games. Homecoming. Oh, man.
Best high school memory.
Best high school memory. Man, I have a lot. I've got a really funny one that ties into fishing. And when I went here, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, I loved to fish, but fishing was still a very uncool thing. So we'd go to all these little lakes and ponds and we'd sneak around and we'd make sure that no one would see us with our rods and reels. Terrible that we thought that, but we were the only ones that fished, and we thought uncool. So one of our very good friends that we went to school with, they had a board right in the middle of the school, and after junior prom, everybody went up and put their prom pictures up there. Well, me and Brian got our buddy Tom's picture of him shirtless, holding about 1.5 pound largemouth, and we stuck that picture up on the board. And everybody would walk past, and they'd be like, why did he put that picture up there? And chicks would be going by giggling. And this one other guy that fished, saltwater guy, came by and went, why did Tom put that up there? That's not even a big fish. That's not my favorite memory of school, but that's a funny memory. Man, I don't know what my favorite memory is. I did a lot of memories, a lot of normal memories. You know, girlfriends, football games, school dances, skateboarding in the back when I was a freshman, skateboarding, freestyle, BMX, playing soccer. I played varsity soccer here at the school. Man, pep rallies, a lot of cool memories. Getting into fights. Probably shouldn't talk about that one. You know, being a typical teenager, trying to find yourself, trying to find your place in life. That's what I remember from Triton. I didn't do it. There it goes.
So that's where you played Little League at?
This is the site of where I played Little League ball at. In fact, I've pitched right there. I used to pitch for a team called the Cardinals. I've been on that mound many times right there. This is where I played soccer, Runnymede soccer, right here, back in the day. A long time ago, behind that, there used to be a hockey rink that I played street hockey back there. That's gone. That's been torn down. Oh yeah, man, this is my old stomping grounds over here. Yeah, I remember playing wall ball up here, getting candy, hot dogs, soft pretzels. All right, so here we go. We are entering the beautiful campus of Rowan University, aka Glassboro State, and this is where I went. I spent 2 years. I spent my junior and senior year of college at Rowan, and this was actually a really cool time in my life. This was a cool point in my life where I was still trying to figure myself out. You know, a couple big things came out of my time here at Rowan. You know, all the while I was a normal college student, but you know, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. You know, the one thing that I found here at Rowan was I found my niche in college, in what I was good at. My freshman and sophomore year, still trying to figure it out, but here at Rowan, you know, I figured out that I was pretty good at communications. I was good at writing copy. I was good at public relations, advertising. They were the classes I really started to sink into. So, you know, that's what I found here at Rowan. And literally, we're passing the buildings now where I attended. Memorial Hall, there's the study hall, here's the bookstore. Really important part of my life, finding out who I was as a student. The other thing was, this is where it was my epiphany for me, where I said to myself for the first time, my junior year, the start of my junior year, that I wanted to try to fish for a living. This is where the goal first happened, and it was where I first fished as an amateur. You know, this was the spot where, for the first time, I really said to myself, professional fishing is something I want to try. You know, the start of my junior year here at Rowan, I fished an event as an amateur. I fished a BP Top 150 Bassmaster tournament as an amateur. And that first tournament was an awesome, amazing experience. And I came back from that event with a new appreciation for what professional fishing was. And man, when I got back here, you know, between studying and between trying to do good, I really, for the first time in my mind, started thinking, this is something I want to do. This is something I want to try. You know, not blind to the fact that I wanted to get my degree. I wanted to graduate. And the reality was, you know what, it probably won't work. I'm going to get into advertising, I'll get into a communications field, and that'll be my gig. But in the back of my mind, for the first time, right here, I thought, I want to try it. Professional fishing is something I want to try. And that all happened right here at Rowan. Yeah, so unfortunately, when I came here, I don't think I got to see the effects of Henry Rowan's $8 billion donation, but you know, we were stuck in a lot of these older classrooms, the Memorial Hall area on campus. These buildings, a lot of them were built in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Air conditioning, hot. I can remember being hot in the summertime, being cold in the winter. But I'm complaining, but it was a great education. Had some amazing professors, learned some amazing stuff. You know, the interesting thing, reflecting on all this stuff now, the entire time I was learning this stuff, I never knew that it would directly help me in my fishing career. I was taking these advertising, these marketing, these PR courses, because that's what's kind of fun to me, and that's what I was good at. Years later, I'm standing out here at these classes and realizing that, man, that stuff helped me. Dealing with sponsors, dealing with the public, branding, marketing, creating a brand. You know, all that stuff I learned, you know, right here. So it's pretty amazing. It's kind of all coming back full circle now that I'm standing here. I had a professor, Dr. Vogel, who was a big influence on me that year. You know, amazing professor, taught me a lot about marketing, PR, advertising, but for another reason. And it was my senior year here, and we'd have a lot of projects and creating ad campaigns, creating copy, coming up with a platform for these companies. And I would come up with these platforms for fishing companies. You know, at the time I was taking some of my favorite companies like Man's Bait Company, Fenwick, you know, all these old school companies that I really liked, and I'd come up with these mock campaigns. You know, all the while it's funny because, you know, I told Dr. Vogel, like, man, you know, I'm doing this and I'm passionate about it. And the whole time he kept me grounded enough to say, you know what, it's a great dream, do it. But Mike, you're in class, get your degree, become the best student of advertising that you can become. And so I came up with these crazy concoctions and platforms and these campaigns and ads, mock ads that you'd see in a magazine, trying to sell jelly worms and trying to sell Man's baits. But it made sense for me because I was passionate about it, I could get into it. And the whole time, you know, I saw that glimmer in Dr. Vogel's eye of, you know, go for your dream, but stay grounded. And that was important. That was an important life lesson that I learned right here at Rowan. That's my baby. Amidst all that jungle of industry and traffic and L-E-S, Eagles!
The Spectrum.
Old school.
That's not the Spectrum.
Spectrum
right?
got demoed, man.
That's where the Spectrum used to be.
That's where the
right?
Spectrum used to be, yep.
First time back to the scene of probably one of the most crazy days in the history of the Elite Series, at least from a crowd standpoint. What are your initial thoughts coming back here for the first time?
It's pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, we're sitting here literally on the steps of the Penn's Landing Auditorium. This is where it all happened, man. I'm kind of getting emotional again, getting some chills. You know, you look at it, it's such an amazing thing because I look at this place, I look at the city, Philadelphia, the river, and I see a lot of the roots of me fishing and my childhood and learning to love the sport. And then I look at this amphitheater and I think of how many thousands of hardcore fish heads were here to not only support me, but to support the sport of bass fishing. Man, it was unreal. And I know people are going to criticize me for this, but I tell you, I've been to a lot of tournaments, classics, championship events, big ones. I mean, big, giant venues. And there was more energy and emotion at this event than I've ever felt anywhere. You know, winning here, winning at home, with my family sitting right here, friends, and you know, it was an amazing thing. It was something that, for me, really completed my professional life. I mean, honestly, like, you know, if I never win again, if I never win another classic, if I never win another event, period, this one's special. This one's always going to be a really special one for me. If you look historically at guys that fish on their home water, that can really take you down. So it was a battle for me to use my experience here in a smart way and not run around and fish history. So that was a constant battle. But at the end of the day, with a 7-foot tide and a crappy tide and a flood conditions with that big moon, being a local helped me. More than it's helped anybody in the history of bass fishing, I don't know. But it did help me.
When you look back at your career, is there anything that sticks out that if you had an opportunity to change and do over, what would that be?
Man, yeah. It's a good place to reflect on that. Absolutely. You know, you look back on not only my career, but your life, and sure, I think there's things that you would want to go back and change and do a little differently. Man, from a lot of perspectives, I could think of how I would have liked to change the way I fished, or the lure, or the bait. I can look back and think of tournaments where I wish I wouldn't have reacted the way I reacted. You know, gosh, there's a million of those. I could sit here and tell you a million, literally a million things I'd wish I could go back and tweak. But at the same time, I've got to tell you something that's even more important, which is I sit here today at 42 years old, and I don't want to change anything. You know, one of the biggest things that I realized is that, you know, who I am as a person, not even as an angler, but who I am as a person is everything that's happened in my life. And I don't want to take any of that back, even the bad stuff, because, you know, a lot of those things in my professional career that people were critical of, whether it's the celebrations after a win, or it's the frustration after a loss. I don't want to take those things away,
That's the way to start
because that's who I am. And if you take away the bad, you take away the good. You know, if I stop being me and I cut into that passion, good or bad, then I don't win this tournament. I don't win the Delaware. If you take any of that away in my history, I don't win here. And I'm not going to win in the future. So I don't want to take any of it back, man. There are definitely things that I wish would have happened differently. You know, there's some big ones I can pinpoint, but I don't want to go back and change them. The failures turned into life lessons. The success, the exciting portions pointed me in a different direction. It all happens for a reason, man. I'm not huge on speaking in religious terms, although I believe in God. I like to speak in terms of philosophical stuff, which is, I really believe that, man. Things happen for a reason, good and bad. And I don't want to change that. I don't want to change who I am, ever. You know, I think going back, all the way back, and I can actually even name the year and almost down to the event. Starting in 2002, specifically at the Lake Seminole tournament in 2002. From that moment on, I really let go. I let go of who I wanted to be in the sport of fishing. Pre-2002, my days in the Federation, my days in the Invitationals, and my first couple years as a pro, I tried to fit in. I tried to fit into the mold, you know, tucked in shirt, you know, all shucks, you know, don't make a big fuss, dress and look like everybody else looks. Because I thought that's what you needed to do. I thought that's what you needed to do was conform. And then in 2002, a lot of things happened, but one big thing in particular really kind of changed my attitude, not just in the sport, but in life. And in early 2002, my uncle, again, my uncle, man, he's like my dad. He was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Super devastating, news for him and us, for me. And from that moment on, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was, the reality that, is a good chance that my uncle was going to pass away, or I don't know what it was. But from that moment on, I let go a little bit. I let go. And, at the Lake Seminole tournament, it was really the first time where I just let my emotions out, man. I was, from when I was little and I caught a big one, I got excited and I yelled and if something happened wrong, I'd freaking be pissed off. And in that event, I let it out. And people responded to it in different ways, but overwhelmingly, it was positive. And, and so that was a breakthrough moment for me in 2002. So what I realized was, it was okay to be emotional. It was okay to be me. It was okay to get excited, to yell. It was okay to be frustrated and pissed off and let people know. It was okay to do those things. In fact, it was more than okay, because people could relate to that. Fans were relating to that, People come and said, oh my God, that's me. I have that same emotion. I have that same desire, that same burn. I call it the burn. And people had that same thing. And it was okay to do that. It was okay to be that person. So the first one I'm going to answer is I'm going to tell you that, man, everything that you've seen, heard, all of it, it's 99.9% real. It's me at that moment, either on top of the world, on cloud 9, winning an event, swinging an 8-pound bass, or at the bottom of the barrel, losing a big one, breaking off the winning fish, having my fish die in the live well. Those were real things. None of that was made up. I can look back, the big one that people always talking about, and the big one that I reflect on a lot is what happened at the 2006 Bassmaster Classic, and, I look back on that and I see this frustration that, again, I have that same now. I have that same feelings now when nothing's gone right and it's like the end of the world, and I see that I blacked out. I kind of got so mad I blacked out. And of course I wish I could go back and not kick that light pole, but maybe kick a rod, or maybe punch the steering wheel, or maybe not even do any of that. Maybe keep it bottled up inside. I think I reflected on that after it happened, and you wish you could go back and do things different. But it was me being me, and it was me being real and trying to release frustration quick. People have a tendency to turn things into something they're not, and that's okay. That's what happens in life, and I get it. But for me, it was one of those moments that happened. And I put it past me and try to learn from a little bit and move on. And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those moments. But there's also a lot of moments that I'm back at the hotel and saying, man, I'm glad that happened. I'm glad I reacted like that. It pushed me to another place. That energy got me to another level. So, you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to accept who you are. Can you change as a person for the better? Absolutely. And I that's part of growing up and getting older and maturing in your life and in your sport. And I want to be a better person, but I don't want to take away who I am. I don't want to take away, that feeling that drives me, that feeling that's inside. Because if you take that away, it's not me anymore. We're at Green Acres. We're at a spot called Bare Ass Beach. And this is one of the original spots when I was a kid that I learned how to fish, man. And this is where we would fish. It doesn't look like much. It's a tributary off of the Delaware River, kind of dirty water. But man, we would drive our bikes down here. We would pedal. We'd come down here. We'd find a little opening like this. We'd get down here. We'd shimmy through. And here's what we'd look for. We'd look for one of those things right there. We'd get us a stick. We'd put that thing in the ground. We'd have a rod with a night crawler, a piece of hot dog on it. We'd throw that thing out there for catfish. And then while we're waiting for that bite, we'd have another rod with a little spinner, little grub, and we'd go to casting. Catch a lot of catfish, some bass. We'd catch some white bass, some perch. This is where I love to learn how to bass fish. This is part of the start for me. Definitely not a traditional fishing area. Busy traffic, a city right over there, millions of cars going past. But as a kid, what a great place to come, and catch fish. Man, 99 was an amazing year. So many things happened that year. So many big things happened to kind of launch my career. The first thing for sure was this thing right here, which is winning the Federation Nationals. Big, huge moment for me. Worked my way through the Federation, started fishing the Federation in 1997, and had a couple years of learning there, and then qualified for the divisionals, which qualified me for the Nationals, and then went to the Nationals and won the whole event, won the Brian Kerschel Trophy. And man, this was a big moment for me for a couple reasons. The first one is obvious. I made the Classic. I got in the Classic. Not only did I win this event, but I was getting to fish a tournament that I've dreamt about since I was 12 or 13 years old from afar. The Bassmaster Classic, I was getting to fish it. The second big thing that happened in this event, it was literally the first time that I got national exposure. Up to this point, it was, winning club tournaments, winning a Federation event, winning a Red Man, and a little bit of coverage on those events. But all of a sudden on this one, magazine coverage, TNN, Bassmasters coverage, TV coverage. And, it was the first time that people really kind of got to see me on a bigger scale. So this was a big one. But this same year, I also fished the Opens, and back then they were called the Invitationals. And I ended up, I think, in third place overall that year in the Invitationals, which qualified me to fish in the BASS Top 150, the Elite Trail, basically, of old. And back then, the Elite Trail, or the Top 150 Trail, would run from the fall all the way through the summer. So, think about this year. All in the winter and spring, I fished the Invitationals, ended up third, qualified for the Top 150. That May, I fished the Federation Nationals and won it. That July, I fished my first Bassmaster Classic and came in sixth. And then in my second Top 150 tournament ever fished in my life, I won on Lake Champlain as a rookie. Man, it was, from a professional standpoint in my career, it was probably the best year I've ever had in my life. Probably still, for all those big things that happened. But this one was a special one. It was special because I won on Lake Champlain, and that lake had a lot of meaning to me. It was a lake where I went on club trips from the early 90s. So that lake was special to me. I beat a guy who was my hero in the sport, and I beat Rick Clunn. Rick Clunn came in second in that tournament. Man, that meant a lot. That meant a lot to me and gave me a lot of confidence. But the real thing that this did is it gave me security, man. I can vividly remember, getting to this point, working my way up to this point, and then committing to fish the top 150s as a pro. Huge financial commitment. And, at this point in my life, I was still working at Dick's. I was working in the lodge. Luckily, they were working with me and giving me the time off to go fish these things. But, man, it was such an unsure time in my life financially. And to win, first place, $75,000 in the second event I ever fished pro, that was stability. That was financial stability, and it was mental stability. It gave me a chance to step back a little bit, not be so uptight, and fish a little more relaxed. This was a big moment in my career.
Hey, was this your actual name tag?
This was. Look at that. Isn't it great when you're a hoarder and you keep every fucking thing you ever touched? Yeah, there it goes. Stepping back a little bit and talking about, my job, Dick's Sporting Goods. This is a pretty amazing story. This job for me, I worked at Dick's for 3 years, leading up to when I turned pro. And in fact, turned pro and still worked at Dick's. And what an amazing job. And I really fell into this. The year I graduated college, I can remember thinking, okay, now it's reality time. Now I got to go out and get a job. But how do I do that and still work to become a professional? And had a club tournament that weekend, and I walked into a Dick's store to get some tackle for a club tournament. And I can vividly remember going up to the door, and it's, one of those automated doors, and I'm walking up and I go in and I kind of read something on the door, and I step back out and let the thing slide back, and I'm like, and there on a little handwritten flyer, it said, looking for hunting and fishing employees, inquire within. And I'm like, huh. And it was just one of those things that, it just happened. I mean, I can't explain it, but I walked into a really amazing job, and a job that gave me a lot of benefits to pursuing my dream. The one was I got a job where the store manager at this Dick's, store number 82 in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, the store manager was a fish head. And when he hired me, he kind of right off the bat committed to saying, man, I want you to go for your dream. And he said, look, we're going to give you 40-hour work weeks, but when you have a tournament, we're going to give you off. Where else could you get that? The other thing this job did, it got my foot into the fishing industry to a certain degree, working at the retail level. All of a sudden now I had contacts with the reps, and the reps had contacts with the companies. That was big. That was important, and I leveraged that stuff. And then the final thing is it really let me work with the public, work with, consumers coming in. And it was the first time that I really learned how to teach fishing. And that's a big part of what I do now with the Bass University and with every day in fishing. And it was a fun job, man. I got to help people that would come in that know anything about the fishing, about bass fishing or saltwater fishing. I got to help them buy something, and that was cool. So this was a really amazing job for me at the time. It was an important part of getting to where I'm at now.
Being a dad and being one of the top players in this game, would you really recommend and try and push your son Vegas to become a professional angler?
Man, I knew you were going to ask me that. That's a tough one, man. I stand here and I'm thinking about it, and I've got two answers for you. You know, the one is the part of me that really believes in chasing your dream. So, you know, for any of my kids, for any kids out there, I want to tell them that, you know, you go and chase what your dream is, your passions. And that's important. Growing up here in Philadelphia, New Jersey, you know, I had the dream, and nobody thought it was possible except my family, my uncle, my mom, you know, saying, man, if that's really what you want to do, chase it down. And this half of me wants to tell everybody to do that, whatever that is. If Vegas says, Dad, I want to be like you and I want to fish professionally, I absolutely say, go do it. Chase your dream, chase your passion. This half of me wants to tell everybody to chase it down. But then there's the other half of me. There's the other side of me that knows this sport, that knows exactly what it takes, from a mental commitment, from a physical commitment, and especially from a financial commitment that says, man, do something else. You know, chase another dream. Chase being a pro baseball player, or get a job as an attorney, or be a politician, or be a doctor, or be a lawyer, you know, those normal things. You know, this half of me says, go do that. Because, you know, there's a lot of heartache in this sport too. You're away from home. Your debt builds. You know, the sacrifice, the sleeping in your truck, the going in debt, the long nights, the long days, the dealing with the dirty part of the sport, which nobody wants to talk about, the politics of the sport. You know, that part of me wants to say, do something more normal. But, you know, I got to tell you this. If these two parts were in a fight, if it was a fight and they're brawling, this half's going to win. You know, the dreamer side's going to win. And if Vegas grows up and he goes through the levels and he gets to college and he's on the college team and he graduates and says, this is what I want to do, then I want him to do it, and I'm going to support him. But it's tough.
Number of guys on there. What was going through your mind when you were sitting there with those guys?
Oh man, this is yeah. You know, again, this is amazing to look back at this. This is the last day of the Bassmaster Classic, and you know, the final five weigh in, and I'm sitting up here, literally next to some of the biggest names in the sport, guys from when I was young, reading about. You know, Davey Height, Harold Allen, Gary Klein, you know, and from that standpoint, you know, man, you're in awe, you're intimidated because here are your heroes sitting next to you. But there's a lot of stuff going on in my mind right here, man. You know, you got to remember, going into this tournament, I was done. I can remember saying to myself, man, I'm going to fish this last classic. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to go out with a bang. But I'm done. I'm done. Screw it. Screw this sport. Screw this sport that's hurt my life so bad. And you know, there was a lot of stuff going on leading up to this classic. Personally, my life was in the gutter at this point. You know, going through a breakup, you know, getting ready to inevitable divorce that was coming. I got 2 little kids in the mix. You know, sponsors that weren't happy. I mean, oh my gosh, this was, I just wanted out leading up to this tournament. And here I am on stage knowing, and I didn't know, but deep down inside, I knew I'd won this event. You know, this is a really amazing time where I was right on that ledge. And I think even here, I still wasn't sure what was going to happen in my life. You know, but once they announced that winning weight, I vividly remember it, you know, and they hand you that trophy and you put it up over your head, you know, at that moment, I knew that it was changed. I knew that what I thought was going to be the end of my fishing career had changed like that, and this was going to be the start to something brand new and something amazing and exciting, and it was. It really was.
The ride around the arena with the flag, confetti going everywhere, and some of the stuff you wrote on the back of that photo, it's pretty touching.
Yeah. Yeah, this was an amazing time, and this is, you know, this is what we all dream about. This is what, you know, from when you're 12, 13 years old and you're flipping through the Bassmasters and you see those images, watching TNN, seeing Rick Clunn come from behind on the last day and do the victory lap in Richmond, Virginia, and the chills that I got as a kid. And this is all that becoming a reality for me. Man, unbelievable. I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it. And what's amazing is it's not the lap, it's not the confetti, it's not the crowd behind me and the excitement. That's amazing. But the thing that that blows me away and I'm super proud of even now is taking that victory lap with me, right here, looking up, right, sitting right on the passenger seat. It's my mom. It's my mom who's there with me for this moment, for this amazing moment in my life. Man, I couldn't imagine, besides my uncle and my grandparents, I couldn't imagine having anybody else in the boat for this victory lap. You know, just from the fact that she always supported me from the very beginning, through the good times and the bad times. And there were a lot of both. There were a lot of both. There was a lot of, you know, financial struggle, and there was a lot of downs, you know, relationships and all this stuff. And she was there. She always supported me. So to have her there for this moment, which is one of the biggest things that ever happened in my life and still is, that was really special. I'm so glad that she was the one with me on that victory lap. That was special. Yeah, this is going way back. This is my first boat. This is the Coleman Crawdad, man. You know, and this is what I had club fishing. This is what started me fishing. But, you know, Uncle Don's sitting in the back, and he was a real important figure in my life, period. Not just in my fishing life, but in my life, you know. You know, growing up, I didn't have a dad. You know, my dad passed away when I was real young, so my uncle became my father figure. And you know, you need that. You know, you need that figure there in your life growing up. But what's interesting is, you know, he's the guy that got me involved in fishing, but not bass fishing. You know, it was trout and bluegill and panfish and all this other stuff. And, you know, here we are, you know, 18 years later, 19 years later, and, you know, I've got him in the back and I'm teaching him about bass fishing. It was the opposite, you know, when I was young. It was me in the back. You know, it was me actually sandwiched by my pop in the front of the boat, my uncle in the back, and I was kind of sandwiched in the middle watching these two guys. And, you know, here, now I'm starting to, you know, get into bass fishing, and I'm getting to teach my uncle about the sport a little bit. That's cool. That's actually that's a cool, amazing picture.
When 50 starts rolling up or 50 gets near,
yeah,
what's it going to be like, maybe, or what are your thoughts about life after tournament fishing, and are you working toward what a lot of guys don't want to talk about, which is retirement?
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, you know, here we are in this sport where there's supposed to be no such thing as retirement, right? It's just fishing. There's nothing physical involved in fishing. You can fish till you're 80. But nah, there's a lot more reality to that. Yeah, I'm in my 40s and I physically hurt now. I physically hurt after a big long event, a grueling event. After this one, I physically hurt. For me, I mean, I'm thinking about the big picture. I don't know. I can't speak for other guys, but for me, I'm thinking about the big picture, and retirement's part of that. It's hard, man. I don't want to think about it right now because I'm very competitive, but I'm a realist, and having other things going on is an important part for me.
You think that's cool? I said, you think that's cool?
Just tell me to leave, Kevin. I'll leave. You don't have to get mad at me.
I'm just asking you. I just wonder if that's cool.
It's a beauty hole.
You ain't part of the community.
Kevin, next time just say, Mike, can you please leave this spot? Just be nice about it. I'll leave.
I wasn't mean. Whatever you want, dude.
Be nice next time, and I'll leave for it. That's all.
I was nice. How was I mean?
Come on, man.
I just said, is that cool? He's having a bad day, I can tell. Mike and I don't have the best relationship, if you hadn't figured it out.
What was your conversation like with Kevin once you got away from there, and what are things like now with Kevin?
Yeah. Yeah, that whole thing, I think they're, brought up a couple points. And, the first one was, I think a lot of the general public seemed very shocked, by that. Like, oh, they're in an argument, and, there was almost this outcry, like, does that happen, And, the first thing is, let me tell everybody, that happens every tournament, every day of every tournament, people end up on the same spot. So that's a very normal thing. The second point is, did Bass need to show that? Was that an important part of what happened in that tournament? And I got mixed emotions about that because part of me says no, like it wasn't. That had nothing to do with the outcome of the tournament. Spend that time on guys that are catching them. Cover them guys. Let them show how they're catching them. If I'm in the top 5 and I'm catching fish, show me. Don't show this guy that's in 15th place fighting with the guy that's in the top 5. That has nothing to do with the outcome of the tournament. But the other half of me understands, why it was shown. They want to build this controversy up. They want to get people involved and the viewer involved, and I get that. They're trying to build a fan base, so I understand that. What happened happens all the time. In fact, after that tournament, Kevin came up to me in the bag line. We talked. He apologized. I apologized, and we went about our business. Kevin's a peer of mine. I'm on the road with him 10 months out of the year. What happens on the water stays on the water. I live by that motto. So from that standpoint, it was a very normal thing. Now, I got to tell you, the first time, and I didn't get to see the footage literally till we watched it on IKE Live, which was, I think, about a month later. And I was a little thrown off by a comment that I saw in there. I don't remember even exactly what it was, but it was something to the effect that, Mike and I don't get along. And, I never thought that. We're not at the bar every night drinking. We're not, sending each other birthday cards. But surely I thought we were okay from a professional standpoint. So that threw me off a little bit. But you know what? Again, at the end of the day, what happens on the water, it's competition. It's very competitive. There's a lot of emotion. And there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But once the day's over, man, that shit don't stick with me. It's gone, and that's how I look at it now. And you know, we can banter back and forth a little bit, kidding, and we've been doing that, and it's all cool. I don't have any hard feelings for Kevin. You know, hey, he's the best angler in the world, and he'll always be one of the best bass anglers in the world. And what happens on the water, that doesn't change that. And I respect the guy, and I'm going to continue on with who I am, and I hope he continues on with who he is. This life so far has been the strangest, weirdest, most exciting, disappointing, depressing, amazing, wonderful life ever. And that's a good way to describe it. You know, I look back on the 42 years from what I remember, and man, it's been awesome. I get to do a lot of things that I wanted to do since I was a little kid. That's an amazing thing in life when you can be involved in something that you've dreamt about from a very young age. Every day, in some way, I get to touch fishing, which is my passion. That's my passion in life. That's what I'd rather do more than anything. If you take away the tournament aspect of it, pull out the professional fishing, I still love to fish. I still want to fish, and I get to do that. I've got everything I've ever wanted in life. I've got 4 wonderful kids, an amazing wife. I've got a mom and uncle and family that love me and support me. I've got my dream house on a lake where I used to sneak into and get kicked out when I was a kid. Man, I mean, it's almost too good. And there are still a lot of bad days, and there have been bad days. But my motto in life is that when the good things outweigh the bad things, you're doing okay. So, is it good to be this guy? Absolutely.
I wanted to be a pro bass fisherman since I was 5 years old. Everybody thought I was crazy. You know what? I